Well, we didn't really talk as much about Brian Thomas Jr. Our friend Josh Capo texted me after our last show where we talked about rookies of the year, or whatever, and he was like, "What about Brian Thomas Jr.?" I was like, "Did we mention him? I don't even remember." We talked about so many guys, and I'm sure his name got a shout at some point, but I just wanted to focus on him this week because we didn't talk about him a ton in last week's show and the pace that he's on right now. After week 5 now, 75 catches, 1,350 yards, and 10 touchdowns is what he's on pace for.
Wow.
That's a pretty decent rookie season. I don't know if
That's
you
an unreal rookie season.
pretty good. Yeah, he's averaging over 18 yards per catch. His average depth of target is cruising there. Okay, so he's almost at 13 yards for his average depth of target. Really impressive stuff because a lot of this is happening on a vertical plane. This offense has obviously not been a great one so far this season. Maybe found their footing a little bit against Indy's defense, which has struggled a good bit, but it's just Brian Thomas as a vertical plane threatener, and I don't mean just like go balls, but you're talking about deep crossers, deep posts, things like that. Anything, the comebacks and the curls to break back to the quarterback, anything outside the numbers, and then things that are bending into the deeper portions of the field. He's been pretty good at a lot of the underneath and more nuanced route running. I think is going to take some time with him. But if you're just talking about like an outside wide receiver who can give you that vertical threat, who can be a possession guy at times too, like there are some really good and attractive things in his skill set because he's not just a true speed size guy. I mean, the touchdown against Indy was on all the highlight reels, but it was really just a blown coverage.
Right.
So I was like looking through his other reps and I was like, oh man, these other reps are way better that aren't going to get probably as much buzz, but like the way he can accelerate and decelerate for a guy his size is pretty crazy. Now there are reps where he is still, you can tell he's still like learning how to play the position, how to really run routes. So it's going to come down to his route running, but all the traits are there. When you just talk about how you want a guy to move at his size, a lot of the time, the idea of it is better than what it actually looks like when you get in an NFL setting. And it's just not true with Thomas. Like he can accelerate, he can snap out of a break. And that's why I ended up being high on him, even though I thought he was a really raw player in college that hardly ran any different routes at LSU. I ended up being higher on him because I just thought all the traits are there for him to actually become good at this stuff. It's not like he's just a linear player who has no clue what he's doing. So we're seeing that process happen with him, I think, at this point, where he's learning to play wide receiver. But I think a lot of what we've seen so far from the competitiveness and the toughness he plays with, physicality at the catch point. I think you'll have 3 of 9 in contested catch situations, but some of those are pretty tough ones, I would say, in terms of the contested catches. I think most of the ones that have been catchable, he's made. There's been a few drops this season. That stuff, again, I've said this about Malik Neighbors too, his college teammate. I'm not worried about that stuff, especially for rookies. Continue to feed them the ball, and I think you'll see that stuff leaked out. Nobody doesn't work out because of drops. You may have to live with a few. We will see, but I think everything we've seen from Brian Thomas so far just says this guy is going to be a big play threat down the field, and I don't think he's just going to be, somebody who does it like a Rashid Shaheed or somebody like that who like once or twice a game does that. But I think his impact can be felt in more ways than just a go ball shot, once or twice a game.
Yeah, and I was really encouraged by when I was watching this game against the Colts specifically. They're at least allowing him to run different routes. He's still primarily that like outside wide receiver. I know he was coming from the slot on the big touchdown, but like you said, that was sort of a schemed up play where they were really trying to put the outside corner in conflict, and they got him really good, and that just allowed Brian Thomas Jr. to have a lot of speed from that slot position. He's not really they're not asking him to be a nuanced route runner from the slot when they often have him in the slot. It's vertical stuff, it's seam balls, it's slot fades, it's things like that, just trying to get vertical. He's going to learn to be better at getting a more diverse release package, being able to win off of press coverage a little bit easier, because that's the unlocked part of it, right? Because when I was watching this past week, I saw him speed out, nice little in route, like dig route. Obviously, he runs the vertical stuff. He runs the post stuff. He can run the comebacks. But I also saw like a slant route from him. Now, the slant route was one where you could tell he ran the slant and tried to win it off of athleticism alone, and Jalen Jones was able to get his arm around and break up the pass for when the ball was coming in on the slant route. When he gets better releases, when he can throw like a little like diamond release in there and kind of like lead Jalen Jones to the outside and have him, back up a little bit, and then boom, you just fire up in the inside, then all of a sudden you're winning with technique and you're winning with that elite athletic ability. And when that comes from Brian Thomas Jr., then you get to say, all right, well, let's play him in the slot a little bit more. Once he diversifies that release package, let's put him in the slot. Let's give him those two-way goes. He'll be tough to cover because, if you mentioned, just the athleticism of what he has with the explosiveness, the controlled ability to be able to make good cuts on his breaks, and how he can catch through contact as well. So I'm really encouraged by Brian Thomas Jr. as well. 33.3% threat percentage in week 4, 32.1% threat percentage in week 5. They are feeding this dude. They are ready to make him a focal point of their passing attack every single week, or at least if it calls for it, they are able to do that. So,
and where would they be without him, Trevor? Like, I mean, this is an offense that wants to go down the field a ton.
Screwed.
And, like, he's their best guy at that. Like, that pick just seems crucial. Austin Gale, our boy, pointed this out on Twitter recently. I don't know if you saw this, but he said highest yards per route run average for rookie wide receivers in weeks 1 through 5 since at least 2000. Obviously, a minimum of 100 routes on this. Greg Jennings is first, putting the team on his back. Jamar Chase is second, 2.98.
Okay.
And Brian Thomas is third at 2.78. Just a tiny bit ahead of Justin Jefferson, who is 2.77, and Puka Nacua is fifth at 2.74. So what we're seeing from him is kind of going under the radar because Neighbors is getting all this volume. Marvin Harrison's been scoring the touchdowns. There's been a lot of exciting wide receivers, I think, so it's kind of getting lost in the shuffle a bit. But on a per route basis, like the way he's been able to produce, pretty awesome, especially when you consider this offense hasn't even done a lot of things really right this season, and he's still been able to be this dominant.
It's why I love the pick so much, because this team showed that they wanted to be a team to push the ball deep down the field. And even though they signed Gabe Davis and that they wanted him to be that, he did not have a good year last year. And I think that they were chasing the lone good year that he really had as a deep threat. And Brian Thomas Jr., I think, is a better example of what you could have when you're pushing the ball deep down the field with this Jags offense.